Hello, and welcome to week 69. And this time we have the second Jane Austen. We have Pride and Prejudice. Um, okay, now we have to start with this first sentence. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. What in the world does that mean? It is a truth universally acknowledged. Well, what Austin's getting at here is just because something is universally acknowledged doesn't make it true. Just because it's called true doesn't make it true. But it makes it a topic of conversation, a topic of gossip. And that is a large part of what this book is about the circulation of gossip. Gossip both in the tea, the dirt on somebody, and also the truth and reality and that sort of thing. So reputations are made and destroyed by the gossip that passes around, by the talk. And remember, we're dealing with a world where Regency England, where women don't really have a public sphere life to speak of. And so what we're dealing with here is um, it's not the salon culture of Balzac or of Proust. It is the more day visits that were common both in Balzac and Proust as well, but were more common in this world. There are balls, yes, but the balls are not the focus. It's really that private conversations that women have where they're sitting around visiting each other during the day. Got to remember, okay, we're dealing here with idle women. These women do not work. At this point, the five Bennet sisters, which we'll get to the plot in a minute, are unmarried. They do nothing except uh, um, education and what's called work. Now, what's called work is never explicitly explained, but what it typically is sewing. It is embroidering, it is hemming, it is darning, it is all the things of taking care of clothing and of decorative fabrics. So that is when it talks about work, that's they're talking about. It is one of the women, in this case Elizabeth, at one point is definitely doing quote work, and that's what she's doing. She's got her sewing bag, and her sewing bag is whatever it is she's sewing. And depending on who it is, it could be any number of things, decorative lace sorts of things. It could be related to quilting. It could be, fixing socks. It could be anything that needed to be um, sewed and fit within her particular skill set and need. So that is what's going on there. Other than that, what do these women do? They play piano, they sing, they read French, they have a smattering of education. By smattering of education, I mean they are taught some things, not other things. Novels are considered dangerous. Too much history and that sort of thing is dangerous. Business, they don't need to know those things. In fact, they're excluded from business conversation very explicitly. The men go off and do business while the women are left behind. Um, and so this is the world that Austen knew well, and this is the world that she writes about. So, Pride and Prejudice, probably one of the most famous stories in history, outside of, say, like Shakespeare or something. So, what in the world is it about? Well, it's about the Bennet sisters Jane, Elizabeth, Mary, and Kitty and Lydia, or Lydia and Kitty. I think Kitty is the youngest, Catherine Kitty. Um, and the Bennet family. Mr. Bennet and Mrs. Bennet. Mr. Bennet married a frivolous young woman, as his daughter Elizabeth says at one point, and it didn't matter because, he was going to have a male heir and he was going to settle his estate on them and it would be fine. But unfortunately, after five daughters, the son wasn't coming and they didn't have a son. And so their estate is entailed out from under them, primogeniture going to the male heir. And so that's exactly what happened. Is because he doesn't have a male heir, the estate is going to, on his death, will revert to the other line of the family who has a male heir, and that male heir is Mr. Collins. And that's going to matter. So, that first line, it is a truth universally acknowledged that a man in great fortune must be one of a wife. Is that what it is? Is a truth universally acknowledged a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in one of a wife. Well, Miss Bennet has 5 daughters, and the youngest, Kitty, is 15 maybe? Um, and the oldest, Jane, is 21, going on 22. Not yet 23, as it says at one point, but I think the book takes place over a course of about a year. Um, and none of them are married, and all of them are out in society at the same time, which means they all go out to balls, which means they all cost expenses in dresses and various accoutrements as they want to be, seen and appreciated and get beaux and potentially a fiance slash husband. So, but there aren't that many eligible men here until Mr. Bingley moves into town, and that who is the first sentence is about. It's about Mr. Bingley, Mr. Charles Bingley, and unbeknownst to anybody in the beginning of the novel, Mr. Bingley has brought with him a couple of companions. He has brought his sisters, Miss Bingley and Mrs. Hurst, and I think Mr. Hurst, but Mr. Hurst doesn't play much of a role. Mr. Hurst is his sister's husband, and very importantly has brought Mr. Fitzwilliam Darcy. Now, Mr. Fitzwilliam Darcy is literally 10 times as rich as Bingley, and he is also a eligible bachelor. He is 28, and he is definitely a catch in his monetary sense, but he is a proud and apparently obnoxious man. And this is what all the Bennet girls discover. As they start going to social functions, they meet with Bingley and with Darcy and with the Miss Bennets. The Miss Bingley and Mrs. Hurst. They start getting into the world of these guys. Mr. Bingley falls for Jane instantly. This is like the romance if you just want straight romance. They are instantly in love with each other. And despite Jane not having able to provide much of a dowry, she's not going to help his fortune. Bingley doesn't need help with his fortune. He's rich. And Jane and Mr. Darcy would be the next most logical pairing, right? But Mr. Darcy won't dance with Jane. In fact, he says within her hearing that he doesn't consider her worth his time. I think he even calls her kind of mildly ugly. And she takes great delight in sharing this with others because she enjoys the foibles of the aristocrats and whatnot. Anyway, so Jane and Bingley are lovey-dovey, all lovey-dovey, and Jane goes over to visit at Bingley's house, but she gets caught in a rainstorm and catches a cold, and she's stuck there with a cold. And Elizabeth, concerned about the health of her sister, takes upon herself to walk 3 miles in the mud to go see her sister. Now, this is considered to be just a wildly outrageous thing to do, to walk in the mud 3 miles and to get mud up 3 inches, 6 inches on her petticoat is just, man, she is clearly just completely and utterly out of control, according to the time period. Anyway, they stay there, and Mr. Darcy starts watching Elizabeth and starts watching Elizabeth and starts watching Elizabeth. And they go back home, and then Bingley and Jane are, hanging out and this sort of thing. And then all of a sudden, Bingley moves. He moves to London. And this devastates Jane because he doesn't offer any explanation. All she gets is a letter from Miss Bennet, which is kind of crowing about him leaving, even though she claims to be friends with Jane. So there's a bit of hypocrisy going on there. In any case, she's devastated, but she goes to London to visit with some people because they're hoping that while she's in London that they may run into the Bingleys, but they don't, and they find out later they don't because even though Darcy and Miss Bingley knew that Jane was in town, they deliberately didn't tell Bingley because they wanted to set him up with someone else. Bingley wants um, Darcy, and so she's badmouths Elizabeth as soon as she begins to suspect there might be any interest on Darcy's part for Elizabeth, and she has schemes for um, her brother Charles to marry the daughter of Catherine de Bourgh, who is the aunt of Darcy, and therefore bring the two families together through two marriages. Okay, so this is that design. Meanwhile, at Netherfield, where all this was happening, there's a small town called Meryton, and at Meryton, some soldiers are stationed, and one of these soldiers is a guy that goes by Wickham, and Wickham is charming and flirtatious and attractive and all the things that would appeal to a young woman, and Elizabeth kind of sort of forms a slight attachment. She downplays how much of attachment she has, and she's clearly not in love, but she does form an attachment. But then she finds out that there's super bad blood between Wickham and Darcy. And she hears Wickham's side of the story, which gives her even more fuel to dislike Darcy. So that's going on. And then Elizabeth goes to visit another one of their relatives out in the country. And she happens to be very near Pemberley, which is Darcy's estate. And on a whim one day, they decide to go and look at Pemberton because it's a house you can go into and look at because it's a big family house. And so they go and they look at the big fancy house, and it's amazing. And then Darcy shows up unexpectedly. Thought he was out of town. And anyway, I'm skipping some things, but I'm going into great detail about other things. I don't know why. Anyway, Darcy and Elizabeth. Darcy says that he couldn't restrain him. He catches her at home on her own one day, and basically says he's in love with her, and he wants, and he can be her wife, and she says no, I wouldn't marry you for anything. You're a proud and nasty man, and he gets upset and leaves. But he writes her a letter explaining his reasons for stepping between Jane and Bingley, which he did, and he acknowledges that he did, and he explains his bad blood with Wickham. He explains his side of the story. Okay, so all this is going on. Mr. Collins, by the way, the guy who is going to inherit this estate, he makes a offer of marriage to Jane as well before Darcy, and his is just pathetic and just hilarious. In fact, let's see if I can find it. It is so ridiculous. Um, oh, where is it? Yeah. All right. Jane says, I'm sorry, Elizabeth says, I do assure you, sir, that I have no pretensions whatever to that kind of elegance which consists in tormenting a respectable man. Okay, Collins has accused her of refusing his advances in order to play hard to get to increase his ardor. And she says, no. She says, I would rather be paid the compliment of being believed sincere when I say I don't want you, basically. I thank you again and again for the honor you have done me in your proposals, but to accept them is absolutely impossible. My feelings in every respect forbid it. Can I speak plainer? Do not consider me now as an elegant female intending to plague you, but as a rational creature speaking the truth from her heart. And what does Collins say to this? You are uniformly charming, cried he, with an air of awkward gallantry, and I am persuaded that when sanctioned by the express authority of both of your excellent parents, my proposals will not fail of being acceptable. To such perseverance and wilful self-deception, Elizabeth would make no reply, and immediately and in silence withdrew, determined, if he persisted in considering her repeated refusals as flattering encouragement, to apply to her father, whose negative might be uttered in such a manner as to be decisive, and his behavior, at least, could not be mistaken for the affectation and coterie of an elegant female. It's just, you have to understand, Austen is a master of irony and understatement, that kind of thing. So that passage is absolutely hilarious. And to me, it's even more hilarious because we all want to be a Mr. Bingley. We all want to be a Mr. Darcy. But I know that of all the characters in Austen, because of my pedantry, because of my interest in books and things of that nature, even though I think that I have more vitality and more life than Mr. Collins, I'm in Mr. Collins for sure. So I mean, it's clear enough. I'm the long-winded uh, uh, windbag. I do listen to women though, but anyway. So this goes on for a while, and then Lydia gets a chance to go and visit Brighton Beach. And she goes to visit Brighton Beach, and guess what happens? She elopes with Mr. Wickham, who is there because the soldiers that were at Meryton have gone to Brighton. They elope to London, and so she's going to destroy the reputation of the whole family. The youngest sister is going to make the marriage prospects of all the other sisters really difficult. Now, Jane is careful to make it that Lydia apparently truly believes that they're going to get married. She's just not quite as concerned about the propriety and the way that it happens. She also makes it clear that Wickham had no intentions of marrying her at all. He was just basically going to use her for whatever and then move on, which would have destroyed her and compromised her entire family. But Mr. Darcy hears wind of this, and he goes and he fixes it all on his own and gets Wickham to marry her. And then he tells Elizabeth, and he says, if there's any chance that you can, uh, if your mind has changed any, if you're still where you used to be, let me know now, because apparently his great love has not diminished. And she says yes, and they get married, and blah blah blah. And of course, Jane and Bingley, Darcy realizes his mistake and what he told to Bingley and tells Bingley, hey, she's really into you. Bingley shows up again at Longbourn at the Bennet estate, and he and Jane get engaged and married as well. And everything's right in the world of Netherfield and Elizabeth Bennet. And okay, I didn't do total justice to the love story, but that is the great love story. And it's all the talk back and forth that's really interesting because that's what happens is partial information and incorrect information and gossip and whatnot spreads back and forth, and that becomes a really important thing. And we see characters like Miss Bennet whose opinions change dramatically depending on what's going on and what position favors her. And that's also something that Austen is parodying and playing with. And we see Jane, who is perfectly good. She imbibes the goodness of what a woman in Regency England was supposed to be. And we have Elizabeth, who is spunky and sarcastic and witty, but is ultimately um, very focused on the necessity of being exactly what a woman needs to be in this period. We see Charlotte Lucas, the woman who marries Mr. Collins, who does so because she's 27 and she knows that she is going to need some kind of an establishment in life. And so Collins is good as anybody. He's annoying, he's irksome, but that's okay. She can handle it because she needs the establishment. Do we have Mary? Mary is a plain woman. She doesn't have the looks, and she studies a lot. She's kind of like the female equivalent of a Mr. Collins in many ways. Um, I think Mary has done a little bit shrift here in this novel, but you can't give everyone the time they deserve. And then Lydia and Kitty are almost interchangeable in some respects, except Lydia is the wild child and Kitty is just young and impressionable. So after Lydia has her falling and her marriage to Wickham and all of that, Kitty begins to grow up a little bit and realize what she really has to do as a young woman. So, anyway, very interesting novel. If you like great love stories, this is one of the greatest in history. It's more than that, definitely more than that, if you're interested. See you next time.